Good morning. Behold, my stuff. This is kind of overdue, but a few months back I had this Webley Mark I all tore apart. I was in the process of just kind of, not really restoring, I was just taking it apart and cleaning it up. And this is an early pre-World War II model Webley Mark I, made in England. They just don't make things like this anymore, unfortunately. Well, if they did, it would be in small quantities and very expensive. So, yeah, it cleaned up really well. You know, this is all original. Of course, some of the bluing is wore off based on some of the corrosion that I had to clean up. The previous owner had this modded. It's kind of a dovetail. I don't know if he had a sight put in or what, but it still functions as like a normal sight. But yeah, all I really had to do is get some of the corrosion, some of the rust off. You know what works really good on getting some of the rust off? Just for your info, just take an old copper penny. And if it's on steel, you're not going to scratch the steel. So you can just kind of rub the penny and scrape off some of the rust. And of course you can, I could send this in, get it stripped down, re-blued, but I like the originality. Something can be said. This is the one that has, some models, this is the inspection stamp, so a lot of them have JJ. And I don't know the exact year, late 20s, early 30s. It doesn't say patent pending up here. If it was one of the early Mark I's, it would say like patent pending, or I think there's a stamp that goes up here, but either way, it's all complete. It had all the springs and screws, and that's what I'm really happy about. There wasn't any missing pieces. It's not the most powerful gun, but when you think of when this was made, Great Depression time frame, a lot of people didn't have a lot of money, so this was kind of a rich man's toy, because this cost probably close to what you can pay for a firearm, or at least a used firearm, which is a bit ridiculous when you think about it. So yeah, it's just like an aristocrat toy. And how this ended up in the U.S., I would love to know, because they were imported, but just wish it can tell the story. But I'm gonna go ahead and shoot it. It's not the most powerful, but how these work, the cocking mechanism is just really cool, real slick how they designed this. The piston and spring, so the piston actually pushes air this way, and then the port for the air comes up, and then you put the pellet in here, obviously shoots out. So there's not like a lot of recoil, because the recoil is coming back at you, not forward. And yeah, it's pretty slick design. I had to replace the little leather seal in here. I had to get one, cut it down with a jeweler's saw. No big deal, but it's just like a little, I think you could use rubber, but I think the original was leather. The piston seal in here is leather. I kept the original one because it was in good shape. Soaked it in vegetable oil. You don't want to use petroleum-based oils on leather because it can break it down. So vegetable oil actually is better. I like this safety too. I just think this is cool. The design of this, there's a spring behind here, so you push it down and turn it. It's like a little button. So now it's on fire, and push down, twist. It's on safe. It's a heavy-duty mechanical safety, but let's go ahead and fire this bad boy right at the table. Why not? It's not the most powerful, so I could shoot it into this rag, but the way to cock it, so this is spring-loaded. There's a little spring here. You pull this guy back, and so here's the breech. I don't know if you can see. There's a little tiny leather seal that's pushed in there. You could actually shoot it without the seal, but of course you're losing efficiency. The way to cock it is the barrel, it pivots on this arm, and the piston, it just grabs a hold of it and cocks it and it'll lock in place. There's a sear right under this area. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that. The most important thing is you don't want to pull the trigger with the barrel cocked back, because if it'll slam forward, you would pretty much ruin your gun. So, I mean, I guess the right way is put it on safe. Grab this. I'm in a weird spot here to cock it. Oh. Okay. So you can actually decock this too. So you got to be careful though. So you basically can pull the trigger, hold, and let it back down. But if I were to not have my hand there and pull the trigger, this would slam down and bend the barrel, and it would kind of ruin the gun. So let me just go ahead and put it back on safe. I'm going to cock it. So this is it cocked. There, as you can see, just the very back of the piston, the little shear arm that's connected to the trigger. It's actually a really smooth trigger too for a very simple like mechanism. It's not complicated at all. There's only a couple parts and a spring, and it's actually quite smooth. It's really good quality trigger. And this is all like heavy steel. This is not light. And then, so there's no spring tension, and this is just butter smooth right here. And this is just a tiny little pin and a really, really small piece of metal. And that's all that holds it in place. And then this is just like a two-part screw. There's like a screw that goes through and a little keeper on the other side. And that's all. That just pops out. It's real easy to strip these down. That's why I like. They're real easy to work on. So let's go ahead. Pellet goes into the barrel, very simple. Just drop it down, close it up. So it's ready to go. I'm just going to fire it into this rag. I don't recommend doing this, at the table, but I know what I'm about. Now it's on fire, so I'm going to go ahead and shoot. Make sure I got enough cloth in there. And here's the little pellet. So, it's not super powerful. It didn't really deform it all that much. I don't know how many, maybe a couple foot-pounds of energy on this guy. Not a lot, but these are just a joy to shoot. They're accurate, they're consistent, well-built, and just well-designed. It's really kind of a timeless design. I don't know if Webley is really still in business. I think anything Webley now might be made in Turkey. I think a lot of the manufacturing moved from Britain many, many years ago, and if Webley is still like a brand, I'm sure it's not made in Birmingham, obviously. So here's some of the markings. Webley Air Pistol Mark I, made in England. There was like a ridiculous amount of patent information on the early models. It was kind of funny. It was just stamps on stamps on stamps. But yeah, this cleaned up real nice. I'm really happy of how it cleaned up. The grips were all intact. The little medallions have a lot of detail to them. Some of them are pretty wore off, but this one there's a lot of really fine, the wings on the pellet, you can see all the little ribs. And so, yeah, I wish they don't have it on both sides, but these were checkered. These were hand checkered. Pretty cool. A lot of work went into this pistol for the early 1900s. So, yeah, this is the Webley Mark I. And maybe later, I can show you the Mark II target model. A lot of the similarity in design. A couple differences though. But I'll give you just a little look at that. The Webley Mark I, pre-World War II.